So we're gonna start again. Now it's after the break. We're gonna see how many people are joining. Thank you for the ones that already joined. And Jacob is gonna introduce his topics. And remember that to use the thread in YouTube to send your questions, so we can have the Q&A after the talk. And now all yours. Thank you,
Thanks.
Jacob.
Yeah. So hello everyone, and thanks for joining the session today. So I will talk about product goals and how they can help to overcome short-term thinking in product management. So especially now is a big time. We are end of the year. The quarter is nearly done. The year is nearly done. And what happens is that leadership teams, business owners, they start to think about the next year. And what mostly happens is that we come up with company goals or objectives for the upcoming year. And those company goals, they basically are kind of a high-level overview and give a focus for us what we should tackle in the upcoming time. And mostly, as I said, it's about a 1 year period from January to December. And the high-level focus is good, but that's on a product team level, that's quite difficult for us to work with. So what mostly happens is we split up the period into quarters, and to make it easier for us and the teams to come up with ideas and also to have an oversight of the topics we want to work on. And what mostly also happens is that we grab then one quarter and we think about the objectives we want to do. We think about what kind of initiatives we want to drive and what kind of impact in terms of metrics this brings us. And what we do is we create objective key results for one quarter, then we work on it, and then the quarter goes to an end. And then we start with a second quarter, and the second quarter ends. And then we basically do the same for the third and the fourth quarter. And this work method is basically brings a challenge, because what we came from is a high-level overview, what we should achieve in that year. And we break that down into quarters, and then we work on a really short-term level. And the issue is basically, how do we actually ensure to have a consistent storyline and also an impact at the end of the year? How do we know what we basically want to achieve by or have achieved by end of the year? And this is where basically the product goals come in, and that's my talk about today. So how can we actually make use of product goals to bring in this storyline and this long-term view? And yeah, so I can basically show you 4 easy steps on how to come towards the product goals and what kind of benefits they at the end can give you. So when we start with the first step, is basically gathering as much as possible information on our constraints and the area we work with. So we have 3 buckets, and the 3 buckets are strategy and vision, customer, and business. And strategy and vision is basically related to everything connected to what kind of audience we want to target, or we have, or maybe we want to change also the audience, what kind of problems we want to solve for the audience. Maybe we also tackle new problems we came across, what value proposition the product provides to our users, and how we reach them, in what channels we reach them, and how we monetize that. And all of this basically pays into the possible differentiation to our competitors. And so that's a strategy and vision bucket, and we want to know as much as possible, connected always to the company goals, as I mentioned earlier. And the second part is the business. So business here means that it's really what kind of KPIs, what kind of metrics we really want to drive and change in that regard. And the customer bucket is what kind of feedback we got from user research, but also if you think about apps, for example, you have reviews from customers, you have feature requests, or you have complaints about certain areas, and that's basically the customer bucket to where you can also create ideas out of. And with this context, you go basically into the next step, and you start an ideation process. So here you always keep those 3 buckets in mind, and you start to ideate what could you change in regards to strategy and vision, what could you impact in terms of business and also customer. And if you have ideas which pay into all the 3 buckets, then they're the most valuable, obviously, because you can drive multiple things at the same time. But with this in mind, you basically, depending on how your team setup is, you either do that with your immediate team as a product manager with your product team, or maybe you're like a group of product managers, so you can do that in that regard. So try to bring every relevant person into the workshop, and try to not to constrain you too much on things like oh, that takes too long, or we are technically not possible to do that yet. That's a different discussion, but in the beginning it's really to come up with cool ideas. And in the next step, what you do is you start to group them. So you come up with all the ideas, and then you try to identify patterns between them. For example, we have in the middle, you see like the group of, or the bucket of account, and we've formed this bucket because we came up with ideas like bringing in social logins, or using an in-product banner to advertise the benefits of an account. So everything is connected to account. So we say, okay, this group of ideas could be connected to account. In the next step, we basically try to prioritize them. So in our group, whatever voting mechanism works for you, dot voting or eyes, or whatever you feel like doing, you try to prioritize them to have kind of an idea which buckets might be more valuable towards for the team, but also towards the context areas you identified. And with this, you have your, you get your dot vote and you have your idea. And then you basically finish the second step, the ideation. So you ran a workshop, you presented the context, so you gained also knowledge. You ideated and shared the results with each other, and did the grouping and the dot voting. Important is really, if you don't have the knowledge of the context, then invite people who can give you context, who can answer questions, invite a user researcher, invite leadership members who can explain you what is our strategy, etc., to have a common understanding. And that's basically also the outcome, that you as a team, what your ideas should drive, what your ideas should impact, and then also you come out with a grouping and the prioritization. So that's really important. For the next step, which is the definition of the product goal. So we had this bucket of account, and this is only a bucket. So you now need to think about, okay, what does it actually mean? How can we formulate something more precise out of this bucket? And it can also happen that you group certain ideas together, which now when you start to think about, for example, target group, maybe don't belong together. So you can also split them up. So you have let's say this bucket of account, and we give it a nice name, make account creation easy. And you also try to describe what's actually behind this goal, and what do you really want to achieve. And then you think about what kind of target group you actually want to address with that goal. And in our case, because it's connected to account, we want to address users without an account, right? What kind of metrics can we actually drive? On the one hand, obviously, a number of conversions and the number of accounts, but also because that's something we mentioned now in the more detailed explanation. the reason for working on account is to increase subscriptions. So also, besides the number of accounts we can drive, we also want to see if we can actually drive number of subscription or the conversion rate towards that. So that's important for the metrics to get an understanding what is the impact. And you see on the right side, the bucket of initiatives has all the ideas we collected. Obviously, we can add more ones over the time, or we can also remove certain ones which don't, play nicely with the goal. The important part is the open questions. So while you work on this product goal and you try to identify the details, which you can either do obviously alone as a product manager, but the advised version is to do that in a team or in groups. Everyone takes one of the buckets and try to define it in detail, and then you come up with open questions. So what things don't we need, or where are certain risks we can't address at the moment? So in our case here, we don't know what kind of social logins our customers actually want, right? So that could be an open question. Maybe that's a research question, and we need to find out more details. So all of this you can basically write down, and then you have a nice overview of your goal. And the question is, okay, what do you do with that, right? You defined now your one goal, but you won't stop with basically one. You will have also a second one, and probably a third and a fourth, and even more ones, which you defined, and you can grab as for the next step. So the important part now is that you want to basically go back to this the picture what we had before, and that's you have this high-level company goals, and what we work on in our day-to-day business is the OKRs, right? So how do we fill in the middle part? And this is where basically the product goals come really handy. If you look at this account topic, that seems to be really massive and probably spread over one quarter. So if we say, okay, this product goal has a high priority for us, we voted it really highly, then we can say, and to put it as a roadmap basically, is okay, make account creation easy, probably spends over all the 4 quarters, and we will start with that maybe in the first quarter, maybe to do some research, but in the second and third we start to develop, and then in the fourth one we will maybe roll it out and be done with that, or even do certain iterations on it. So this gives you the first step, right? Okay, this product goal is probably something we will work on the whole year. And this you do also for all the others. And then obviously your team, depending, all your setup, but your team has certain capabilities and capacity. Obviously, you can't have all the 4 product goals in one quarter, except they're maybe really small. So you will do that for the other product goals as well. And maybe you have a second product goal which spans over 2 quarters, and you will also start in Q1 with that. But then you might have also a third and a fourth one. And depending on the scope and etc., you can build a nice high-level roadmap and overview on the topics you will work on. And this gives you multiple benefits, which I will discuss in detail. But it's like it gives you also like a nice overview of the work you might tackle. So with this in mind, you can create with the product goals, you can create like a rough overview of the topics. It's not something which is, okay, we will start in Q2 with the product goal. It's more like an overview for yourself, but also for the team to identify, what do I need to prepare? When do I start what area of work? Maybe also in terms of research, when do I need to start what? It gives you a starting point for an alignment with stakeholder, right? Because you can go now with this list and say, okay, we believe that in next year we will work on those topics. What do you think about it? They will drive these metrics. Do you think that's a good way? Do you expect more or less or whatever, right? Second part is obviously it makes dependencies visible. especially topics like account or more capability topic have dependencies to other teams or other business areas or even other the central capabilities teams. So that makes it easy for you to communicate already. Listen, we think that in Q2 we will start to work on this big topic, and we need probably your help. So it's also good in this dependency discussions. And it gives you, and that's also really important, it gives you, it's kind of a pre-work of the OKR planning, because you already discussed the areas you want to tackle in this year. And with this, basically, you can even use the product goals as an objective, if it makes sense. And then also the ideas you have are also already initiatives you might tackle. Doesn't mean that all of the initiatives or all the ideas make sense, but it's a possible list of initiatives you can work on, and those you can use for your work to impact the key results in your OKR process. So it's quite a nice and handy list and preparation for the whole year. Yeah, and with this, basically, I can hand over for some questions if we have some.
So while we are waiting for some questions, and I don't have actually any question prepared for your talk. Anything that is coming into my mind. I don't know if anyone wants to share anything for Jacob. Meanwhile, we have also other colleagues here, like in the room, that wanted maybe to share something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's probably also something to digest first and to come up with how can we actually make it useful for us. We actually used it now at Mobile on multiple levels, so on a team level and also on a more like alliance or business unit level. So it's quite interesting how versatile this way is, basically to achieve kind of alignments.
I don't know if it's too much to digest, too less, too little.
There's one
so we
question,
have this
I think.
delay that it's hard a little bit. We have one question from Eric. Do you use the same identified KPIs in your product goals work for the OKRs definition too? It's a really specific one.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. It should be, I mean, for me personally, it should be more or less the same, because obviously the product goals you define, they should translate into good OKRs, and it's mostly the same KPIs you tackle. It can be that depending how you do the OKR definition, that there might be a bit different, or maybe in the product goals you wrote down first more high-level KPIs, but it should be the same. Yeah.
We have a second question also. Like, I hope, Eric, you got your answer. It's from Igor. If I go it right, a product goal here will be a bigger end-to-end initiative that could include multiple teams, or will you define it differently?
It could be, right. It really depends who is preparing the product goals. So if you do that on a, let's say your immediate product team, and then maybe it's only your team working on it, and you have dependencies to others, but it's more like yours. If you do that on a more like group level, then maybe the product goals span multiple teams, and that's up to you how you define that. But it is for sure like bigger end-to-end initiatives in general, also for your team, like spanning over a longer amount of time.
Many thanks. I don't know, Igor, if you got your answer too. Eric is thanking you for the answer.
Welcome.
Let's wait a couple of minutes to see if we have more questions before leaving. And anyway, you can ping Jacob also on Slack. Go back to the video, or whenever you maybe see it in a bit later, or whenever you share it. Like Igor says, saying that he got it. Anytime you can, as you say, you can have another conversation between you.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer questions also in direct message.
Okay, so I think we're gonna wrap up here till the next. We're gonna have the next speakers in around 9 minutes. Anything you may want to share with Jacob, again, it's on Slack, or you can share it with all of us, and you can go back to our webpage at any time to review this talk. And don't forget to give us feedback. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
See you later.